recording in accordance with New York State Open Meetings Law and the Governor's Executive Order from March 12th. We are able to do this meeting electronically via video conference. We do have our publicinput.com platform running so that the general public is able to view and participate in the meeting at appropriate times. And we have the separate venue for our committee members. I would just like to remind folks, if you're not actively part of the discussion, please mute. We try to reduce the background noise. I know I heard some typing going on, and we'll move forward from there. Alex, can you advance the screen? As I mentioned, this meeting is being recorded, and it will be saved for archive for anybody to review later. The general public is able to participate on our publicinput.com platform, publicinput.com/GTC Planning Committee. Observers will be able to get the live stream. They can send in questions or comments via the chat function, email, text. They can record a voice message, or can hit the prompt to get into the queue to speak real time. When we get to that portion of the agenda, we can open the bridge between the platforms. And moving on to the agenda. Here's the agenda, and Scott, I'll turn it over to you to formally call to order.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the November 12th, 2020 GTC Committee meeting. I'd like to start it off by asking Alex for a roll call and roll call. That's with introductions.
Sure. Genesee County, Tim Hens. Livingston County, Angela Ellis.
Here.
Monroe County Legislature, George Abert. Ontario County, Bill Wright. Orleans County, John Papinetti.
Here.
Seneca County, Mitch Rowe.
Mitch was having trouble getting in. He's, I think, dialed in on the phone, but he is trying to connect, so count him as here.
Wayne County, Kevin Rooney. Wyoming County, Todd Gadd.
Good morning, Alex. Here.
Yates County, Craig Pryor.
Here.
Monroe County, Jim Pond.
Here.
Monroe County Planning Board, Rochelle Bell. Sorry, signed in.
Okay, Alex, I'm just going to interrupt you a second. We do have somebody trying to speak in the public input. I wonder if it's Mitch. Do you want me to put him through real quick, or do you want to run through?
Just check and see if it's him. We're just doing attendance right now.
Okay, 1 second. So I'm going to unmute the public input line.
Sure.
Okay, you should be connected. Is that Mitch?
No.
It was somebody.
All right. Well, we'll keep rolling down through. Monroe County Supervisors Association, Bob Kiley.
Present.
Monroe County at large, Scott. Is David Lindsay also here? No. City of Rochester Mayor, Mr. Norm Jones. Rochester City Council, BJ Scanlon.
Present.
City of Rochester Planning Commission, Doreen Kirkmar.
Yep, I'm here.
City of Rochester at large, Eric Frisch.
I'm here.
Empire State Development Corporation, Stephen Golding. New York State DEC. New York State DOT, Chris Reeve.
Yeah, I'm here, Alex.
New York State Thruway, Mr. Carrington.
Hi, this is Matt Durawa. I'll be on for Mr. Carrington today.
All right, Matt. Thank you. GFL, Mr. Gazelle. RGRTA, Bill Carpenter.
Eric Farr for Bill Carpenter.
Thank you. And that brings up our roll call. We have a quorum.
Do you have a quorum?
Alex, just so you know, Mitch, that it was Mitch trying to connect, so he is listening. So
Great.
he's on.
Jody, did you say Mitch was on the publicinput.com platform?
Yes.
Okay, I'll email him the WebEx information.
Okay.
All right, I'm on now. Sorry, guys, for the hassle and gal.
That's okay. Welcome.
All right, yes, welcome everyone. Okay, that brings us up to the public forum. Is there anyone from the public that would like to offer anything before we proceed with today's agenda? I'll look to Lori and Jody for any response on that.
I'm not seeing anybody that would like to speak at this moment.
Okay. All right, then, thank you. And we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that is approval of the minutes of the August 6th, 2020 Planning Committee meeting. Could I have someone motion to approve? Don't be shy.
BJ Scanlon, so moved.
Okay, thank you, BJ. And a second?
Eric for a second.
Thank you, Eric. And in the past meetings, instead of a vote, we'll just generally have a consensus. Only let us know if there's anyone opposed. Hearing none, then the meetings are approved. Thank you. Let's move on to reports and action on old business. First up would be reports on UPWP projects and other activities. I'll have Jim start off with GTC activities. Unmute, Jim.
Thank you. Just bear with me. I got to get the right file open here, and I'm trying to multitask. Apologize. This was closed accidentally.
No problem. It's one of those years.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. So with regard to strategic planning, no separate activity to report there. My file is still opening. The long-range transportation plan will have a highlight update later in the agenda, as that will be a standing item from now until that is passed. And my notes don't want to open up. Come on. Goodness. I apologize. This is taking so long. I closed it accidentally. Okay. Now it wants to tell me that the file's already open, but it's not open. Okay, here we go. Finally, the Genesee Finger Lakes scenario planning tool. GTC staff has provided technical support for some initial pilot projects with our local partners. There was also trend scenarios that were done, and the allocations were developed so that we could place those properly into the regional, basically the underlying foundation of the tool. We are working to schedule the next steering committee meeting in early December, where those trend analysis will be reviewed. There will be discussion on the place types assumptions and discussion on the pilot studies. Moving down to the I-490 Integrated Corridor Management, the first steering committee meeting was held September 30th. GTC staff has worked with our consultant to coordinate on follow-up items related to data collection, stakeholder interviews, and the like. We're working to schedule a second steering committee meeting in mid-December. The Vulnerable User Safety Assessment Program is essentially done. The reports are being put together. We expect to be able to present that for closeout at the January meeting, but it's not quite ready for prime time today. Lake Ontario State Parkway. This project has stalled. Unfortunately, key staff member Jim Bensley out in Orleans County has been out on an extended medical leave. So I'm not sure when we're going to be able to move that forward, but he's been key to the study and a key bridge between the residents of the county legislature, the consultant team, and GTC. So he's been really the hub of this and a vital component. So we're hoping that things go well for him soon. The Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Performance Measurement Monitoring and Evaluation System. Urban SDK is a company that works with traffic operations centers and in other areas of the country. They provided a product demonstration to the RTAC staffing folks in late August. So GTC staff has been working with NISDOT and Monroe County DOT to finalize a scope of work for phase 2 of the implementation of this project. And there's several vendors out there that have done different product demonstrations. So we have a good idea of the kinds of things that we should be asking for. And we're hoping to release an RFP in December. The transportation impacts on economic development in the Greater Rochester International Airport area. Due to other priorities among the different partners in this, the project really has not progressed. So GTC staff did reach out to Monroe County Planning and Economic Development, and really we kind of all agreed that there's not an urgent need for this study at this time. So rather than tying up the funding any longer, our recommendation and desire is to free up the funds from this study, make them available for reprogramming as part of the UPWP, for which applications are under review right now. And if we were to make this change, we could do it just as part of developing the next UPWP that will be adopted in February. I realize this is just kind of tossed on the planning committee, but if there's anybody has concerns or objections, feel free to reach out and we can discuss that as part of the UPWP development committee process as we look at the new projects. But like I said, we haven't had anybody pushing to advance this project, so we thought it'd be best to use the funds on other priorities. The cross-asset highway and bridge evaluation and prioritization tool. Staff are continuing to coordinate with Decision Lens, which is a vendor of a tool that looks at cross-asset classes. So we're coordinating with them on some asset data. They had offered to do a product pilot, 6-week demo type thing. So we need to be able to incorporate our existing data set and evaluation criteria, but we're also trying to follow what is going on at the state level. The company had been in conversations with New York State Department of Transportation main office on looking at using this tool potentially statewide in conjunction with their other asset management tools that are out there. And the state was not ready to go forward on a statewide level. I don't think they felt they had the capacity to take on that level of effort on top of the other asset management tools they have going. But they were interested in doing, say, some pilot programs. And we had offered up to have our region as a pilot and New York City as a pilot, but we're still waiting for that to progress out of Albany. But what we've also realized is that the tool that is being promoted and the idea of true cross asset evaluation really is not done on the regional levels. It's done on state levels. Maybe some very large regions or big cities, might be doing something like this, but at our scale, it really doesn't make sense as a standalone project product. But what we are doing is looking at Federal Highway Administration released a free tool that deals with asset management, and looking at that in conjunction with some of the other tools we developed in years past related to pavement management, related to bridge condition and the like, that rather than finding one tool that does it all, it might, for our scale, tools that complement each other would probably make more sense. The Greater Rochester Transportation Management Association feasibility plan. You may recall that in August I reported that the RFP was officially canceled while we were waiting for the relaunch of Reimagine RTS. Once new services and travel patterns are in place, we think the analysis could be more relevant. But also we think we need some time for the impacts of COVID on travel patterns and mode choice to really settle out. If we're starting to look at van pool type things, until we have a better sense coming out of this, will the general public feel comfortable sharing vehicles? I still wonder the things like Uber and Lyft. It's interesting. There's a reluctance on some part for using RTS, and if you look at the cleaning procedures that RTS has in place, it's very safe, but people won't give a second thought to hopping into an Uber or a Lyft or a Medicaid transportation service. And I wonder what kind of level of cleaning are those drivers taking in between trips. I'm pretty confident it's nowhere near what RTS is doing. So interesting. Travel behaviors might be very different even once we have a vaccine in place. So this one, we want to have the money holding out for the new travel patterns, and hopefully, at this time next year, we could be going out with RFP, RFQ type thing, and not have to wait till April of 2022. That's it on the GTC project, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Yeah. Any questions of Jim? Jim, I do have one question regarding the the International Airport Economic Development Study. That kind of fell off because of COVID. Was there general consensus that they wanted to do it, but other things are in the way right now?
Initially, it was, GTC had generated the idea, and the airport was on board, but at the time the Canopy project was going, so they really need to prioritize on that. And then between the airport, GTC, Monroe County, trying to get it kicked back up after the Canopy project came off, the project had stalled a little bit, and really the interest levels were a little bit by the wayside. COVID certainly has had some impacts, but I think Joe was on the line, and there was something else I'm recalling, some other study, but I don't remember the particulars. Joe, are you on the line?
Hey, Jim. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So just real quickly, I had a conversation with Rochelle Bell, and she may be able may be able to provide some more information, but apparently there's some sort of a survey process going on where the airport is reaching out to property owners or business owners in the vicinity of the airport to collect some information about, I guess, I'm not sure exactly what the purpose of the survey is. I guess collect information about how there can be better connection or coordination between those properties and the airport. And that's kind of one of the key themes of this project was going to be. So we thought it might be worthwhile to wait until that process was complete and they have their findings. And then, in the future, a few years down the road, if there's interest in restarting this project, we could certainly, resurrect it and bring it back to the UDC for consideration. So it's not just because we're canceling it now doesn't mean that it's a complete, done deal for the future.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I was wanting to hear. So, okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions for Jim? All right, move on to the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council update.
Okay, so as noted here, the local updated census addresses was accepted by the board in June. The regional land use monitor is on our agenda for closeout, and I know Emily Royce, I saw her name pop up that she's on. I don't know, Emily, are you able to offer up any kind of update on the complete streets or regional electrification?
I know with the complete streets that we are in the process of still soliciting a second community, but have moved forward with one of our communities, the Village of Penn Yan, and had a successful public engagement session. I was not on that as I was out for a period of time, but that's moving forward successfully at this point. We're just trying to onboard that second community. And in terms of the regional fleet electrification study, I am not able to provide anything useful at this time.
Okay. Joe Bravenzi was at the meeting in Penn Yan. Joe, are you able to offer up anything on complete streets?
Yeah, we've just been working with the village to revise and update the draft complete streets policy. So we don't have a specific date in mind for when that draft policy will be finished yet. But since the public outreach process was completed, we have had some discussions and have been working on some revisions.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Livingston County.
Hi, this is Angela. Livingston
Hi, Angela.
County Downtown Wayfinding Master Plan. I didn't attend the last meeting, but I believe they just recently, maybe last week, had a meeting to kind of go over some of the findings so far, which seemed to be pretty positive. I don't know if someone from GTC was there that could provide a better update than I could on that one.
Just quickly, this is Lori Marr. Yes, I did. It was a fantastic presentation from the consultant where they showed some conceptual branding designs for the signs. They presented those, got some feedback, and I think they're going to make some tweaks and come back. But yeah, they're really making great progress, and they're tying the work for the branding and the artwork and that sort of thing for the wayfinding with the ongoing project that Livingston County Economic Development Office is doing for their other downtown branding. So the timing is perfect, and they're really bringing those in, and we get a sneak peek at the conceptual ideas, and it's really fantastic. So yep, we just had that steering committee, so everything is on track there.
Okay, good. I can provide an update on the mobility management study, just for those that may or may not be familiar with it. That project is really to analyze the existing mobility management that we have in the county. This project is specifically targeted for program level transportation needs through our human service agencies. Our hope is that this project will result in some outcomes and recommendations to better align some of our resources to help meet the transportation needs, especially for our vulnerable populations. We did issue a request for proposals and conducted interview of TransPro to do the work for the project. Steering committee had met and had done that interview. We feel confident in their capabilities. The Board of Supervisors is going to consider a resolution authorizing a contract with them at its meeting next week. So that project's on track, and we're excited to get started on it with a project management team meeting coming up here pretty quickly in December. So moving forward.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Angela. Any questions of Angela? All right. That brings us up to Monroe County.
Rochelle, you want to do the land use?
Yes. Oh, I think, that was.
That one,
anyway.
that was accepted by the board in August, so I guess we lost Rochelle. But yeah, as noted, the last planning committee was recommended for approval, so the closeout presentation's already done.
Right.
Okay, I'll proceed with the remainder then. Thank you. So this is Jim Pond from Monroe County. The high accident location program, we did very good progress in the last since the last meeting, which has been a little while. But we've completed 9 PIL studies since the August 6th meeting, and we're up to 13 out of 28 locations completed for the 2020 to 2021 cycle, which is near the halfway point, and we have additional ones in progress. So we're doing very well there. On the traffic signal and sign inventory program, we finally got the work going. That's the one where the consultant selection had to be done a couple of times, well, twice. So it's been awarded, project is underway. We are collecting data right now, doing test forms for the data collection just to make sure that we're going to get everything we need. Data collection will actually begin in earnest next year through the winter as the weather allows, but mostly in the spring. We're expecting to be completing this about a year from now. So I don't know if you have any other questions on that one or the high accident location program. Go ahead.
Okay. Any questions of Jim? Okay. Thank you, Jim. New York State DOT.
All right, 6232, I don't have any updates on this particular study unless GTC does. Alex or Jim?
Sure. We've reviewed the draft final report and the executive summary and are just tweaking that, and we'll bring that for closeout in the new year.
All right, great. Thank you. 7951, O'Rourke Bridge Operations and Maintenance Analysis. On September 28th, the technical memo, which is the inventory and condition assessment memo, was reviewed by the team and approved. And on October 29th, the consultant provided technical memo number 2, which is the needs assessment for review. Comments are due this week. So we expect to be reviewing comments with them in the next few weeks. And 7952, consultant was selected. I believe it's Bergman. The non-selects were notified. So I'm sure they'll be having a get start meeting in the near future. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Any questions of Chris on the state projects? Brings us up to Ontario County. Not sure we have anyone in Ontario this morning, right?
Yeah, I don't recall anybody responding during a roll call, but I can give an update. A public meeting / walking tour was held on September 1st. The consultant provided a draft existing conditions and needs analysis to GTC staff in mid-September for internal review and prior to sending it to the full steering committee. The comments were provided back to the consultant in early October. GTC staff and the consultant met with NISTOT Region 4 traffic and safety staff on November 9th to discuss the preliminary concepts and gain some feedback. This is something that, I don't know, maybe was a year ago we started doing with these different planning studies that are involving state facilities, reaching out to NISTOT traffic and safety earlier than we have in the past. Sometimes whether it's early on getting sort of any red flags we need to be aware of, any issues, and certainly when it comes time for recommendations to gain some feedback. And Chris Reed might be able to weigh in, but I think it's been a very useful thing to do, and we've kind of basically have integrated into our standard scope of works whenever local communities are leading efforts on state facilities.
I agree, Jim.
And a third steering committee for that project is scheduled next week on the 17th.
Okay. All right.
Continuing with Ontario County, the Hunaway Hamlet study, excuse me, a summary of the public engagement was provided to the steering committee on August 11th. And on September 30th, the consultant provided a draft final report to GTC staff, again for internal review prior to going to the full steering committee. The revised draft was distributed to the steering committee on October 8th for discussion at their October 14th meeting. And a draft final report was posted to the project page on our publicinput.com platform in late October to gain public review and comment in lieu of a single one night public meeting. We're keeping it open, and Bob Williams on staff might have some insight as to how long we're keeping that open for. Like I said, it did go up in late October.
Jim, that's not known yet. I still don't. I don't have the version of the draft report for public review yet. We're expecting it next week, probably early next week, and then I will talk to the consultants and the sponsor and figure out how long we'll leave it up for review.
Okay, then I was premature to say that it's posted up on our page. All right. Then the Ontario County State Route 364/County Road 11 Active Transportation Corridor Plan was accepted by the GTC board at its August 27th meeting.
Okay. All right. Any other questions of Jim? Thank you for Ontario, and brings up to City of Rochester. Eric?
All right, so on 6816, consultant team was selected, led by Tool Design Group, and the kickoff meeting for that project is scheduled for Friday, November 20th. So the project is getting underway. And 7702 is complete.
Right, okay, good. Thanks, Eric. RGRTA.
So RTS system redesign, the whole reimagine rollout is still pending a revised rollout date. We're shooting for sometime this summer or next summer, hopefully, but that is yet to be determined.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks, Eric. Seneca County.
Scott, that project is going to be presented on the agenda later for closeout.
Yep, okay, very good. Brings us up to Wayne County. Not sure we had Kevin on board today.
Yeah, Kevin had emailed that he had a conflict and was not able to attend. So for the high accident location study, as that progressed, GTC staff provided some additional crash data for the candidates list that had filtered out, and site investigations are underway for the top 10 candidate intersections. So that is progressing. And the Ontario Midland Strategic Plan, I don't think we have anybody on from Wayne County Planning, but the steering committee met August 31st to review the business opportunity analysis. And GTC staff met with Wayne County and the consultant to identify a date and location for a second public meeting. It was decided that that meeting should be held remotely on October 27th using the GTC Public Input.com platform. Jody, if there's anything to add to that, I welcome you to jump in.
No, that about covers it. I think they're just, the consultant's just wrapping up the business opportunity analysis right now. So that's progressing.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. To the other agency.
Okay, starting with the Route 390 multi-use trail. The project advisory committee kickoff was held August 10th, and GTC staff conducted bicycle and pedestrian counts along the trail using some of our count equipment and provided that data to the consultant. The consultant worked with the town of Greece to determine a venue for public outreach. They wanted to have something live, so they did hold a community open house at the Basil Morella Park trailhead on October 10th. So that is moving along. As noted on there, the Honeyway Falls circulation accessibility parking was accepted by the board at GTC board in June. The Village of Avon circulation accessibility and parking project has progressed. The steering committee met on September 3rd to discuss the initial conceptual designs. GTC staff and the consultant worked with the village to develop an additional concept for pedestrian access to the park within the traffic circle. There was a stakeholder meeting held with NISDOT Region 4 Traffic and Safety on September 9th, again, to look at the viability of some of the plan recommendations from a state DOT perspective. The second public meeting was held September 23rd, and a comment period was left open through October 2nd. And then GTC staff sent the public meeting comment and survey data from our publicinput.com platform to the consultant on October 4th. The consultant is engaging the Avon Central School District regarding one of the recommendations that affects the school. The steering committee will convene via teleconference on later today, November 12th, to discuss the draft final report, and the consultant will be presenting the study to the village board next week on the 16th. I believe that's Monday. And I'll ask Bob, is there anything I missed?
No, I think that's up to date. There's going to be a committee meeting today as well, just to prepare that project committee for what will be presented to the village board.
Okay. All right, moving on to the Village of Waterloo Circulation Accessibility and Parking Study. GTC received 6 proposals by the August 19th deadline for that RFP. The consultant evaluation team identified 3 consulting teams to interview on September 15th. A preferred consultant was identified, a contract was negotiated, and we were able to issue a notice to proceed on October 20th. The Village of Perry Safety and Access Study, 5 proposals were received by the July 24th deadline, which I believe I already reported last month, but the consultant selection team met on August 20th and identified 3 teams to interview on August 27th. Third consultant was identified, a contract was negotiated. That one took a little longer than anticipated, but we did get a notice to proceed out on October 30th, and a project kickoff meeting is scheduled for next week on the 18th. The Mount Morris to Leicester Route 36 corridor study. The consultant provided a draft inventory report on September 4th for GTC staff review and comment before going to the full steering committee. The publicinput.com page for the project was opened up on September 14th, and a little bit different than some of the others, kind of like we're doing today. The consulting team and local officials held a live session, for the public to interact with the project team on September 22nd and the 30th. The consultant did distribute the draft inventory report for the steering committee review on October 2nd. And the steering committee met November 5th to provide their feedback. So now the consultant team is developing the draft report for the alternatives and recommendations. The Bay Industrial Park study, GTC staff worked with the town of Ontario to finalize the RFP. That RFP was released on October 14th, and proposals are due tomorrow, November 13th. The Canandaigua Waterfront Active Transportation Plan, 13 proposals were received by the July 24th deadline on that one. So there was a lot of interest, but the consultant evaluation team did screen through those proposals and identified 4 consulting teams to interview on September 2nd. A preferred consultant was identified and a contract was executed on September 24th, and the project kickoff meeting was held on November 4th. The next 3 projects are, as are indicated, were accepted by the board in June. So now moving down to Gananda Parkway, an online public meeting was held on August 26th using our publicinput.com platform. GTC staff sent a summary of the public input to the consultant team on September 9th. A project committee meeting was held on October 14th to introduce some design alternatives. The alternatives, there were several roundabout concepts that were discussed, primarily with the hope of reducing speeds near the Beef Gristle Mill and planned senior park. Like the other projects, the consultant team met with NISDOT Region 4 Traffic and Safety. Although this is not a state facility, traffic and safety is involved in setting speed limits, and the a wealth of information, when we're considering roundabouts and considering other safety things. So that meeting occurred on November 4th. To get some thoughts on some of the alternative solutions. And one thing that's interesting that came out of that is the concept of looking at a chicane to slow traffic down instead of a roundabout. And that would be, I think, unique to our region and maybe more appropriate for the setting. So the consultant team's looking at that a little bit more after the idea was raised by the NISDOT traffic and safety folks. The Middle Cheshire Road project, a public workshop was held on August 19th, but attendance was lighter than desired. So the consultant team developed a survey, to put out for the public, and that survey was kept open online from September 1st, October 9th, and was intended to augment the public meeting. The steering committee met on October 29th to discuss the public input, and a draft final report is expected. The note ahead was mid-November, so I'm saying, hopefully by the end of next week before the Thanksgiving break, we'll have a draft report on that. And that takes care of other agencies.
Oh, thank you, Jim. Very comprehensive there. Any questions of Jim on the remaining agency reports? Okay.
Scott, this is Mitch. I did have a quick question.
Sure thing, Mitch.
Who was awarded the contract for the CAP study in the Village of Waterloo?
Bear with me. Let me get to that.
Jim, this is Chris. It was Labella.
Thank you, Chris. Labella Associates.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all. Let's move on to the next agenda item. Any other old business or announcements? Jim, I'll have you lead us through that.
All right. So jumping in, the COVID impact on GTC operations, I like to keep you guys apprised of what's going on. Since the office reopened on July 6th, our staff has continued to split time between the office and home. Generally speaking, folks are in the office 2 to 3 times a week. But we are continuing to monitor the situation with regard to community spread. the announcement, there was an announcement earlier this week that most of Monroe County has been designated a yellow zone under the state's microcluster strategy. At this point, that yellow zone designation has not impacted how we are operating because we've been following the guidance to keep our staff limited to 50% on any given day. But we also recognize this could change on short notice. I did provide out a week's worth of figures to staff yesterday, and if anybody's following what's going on in the daily releases from the Monroe County Department of Health and County Executive's Office, the numbers are going in the wrong direction. So we're prepared to shut down on short notice if we need to. All staff are equipped and prepared to be able to work from home should we need to close the office again. But, one, I guess, good thing out of the COVID is we've gotten really adept at using various tools that allow us to do remote meetings. And that is among our own staff, but then also involving staff from other agencies in support of UPWP projects. As indicated in the report we just went through, we're using publicinput.com for a lot of activities, especially for interacting with the public. But we're also using things like WebEx and GoToMeeting and Zoom and Microsoft Teams to really keep productivity up, even though we can't meet face to face. And in some respects, particularly in interacting with the public, I think sometimes we're getting better interaction. A greater amount of interaction with the public through some of these virtual platforms. And I've said it a few times. I don't recall if I've said it to this group, but in the past, we've always been very cognizant of having meetings in buildings that were accessible to the public, particularly those with mobility limitations. But I've come to realize that, what's more accessible than never having to leave your home? But we're also trying to be mindful of not everybody has the technology to get on a computer and do stuff. So things like our publicinput.com, people can access via telephone. They can access text. They don't need a smartphone or a computer to be able to hear what's going on in the meeting. I said it in a meeting last week. You could even, if you still had an old rotary phone in your home, you could still participate in one of our public meetings, and that's a very deliberate decision to make that available and make it toll free to the person who's calling into that platform. So that's moving pretty well. So now on the federal legislative and funding update side of things, a little bit different going on. Congress and the administration failed to come to an agreement on any of the federal fiscal year 2021 appropriations bills prior to the end of the federal fiscal year on September 30th. However, on September 30th, a continuing resolution for all 12 appropriations was signed into law that keeps federal operations going through December 11th. And the continuing resolution also extended the FAST Act, which funds transportation programs, for the full fiscal year. Unfortunately, it kept the revenues flat at the 2020 levels and not at any anticipated 2021 increase we would have had expected through a new transportation bill. However, when that occurred, I reached out through our New York State IMPO Association of MPOs, so our collective across New York State, to inquire of main office, what's going to happen with our TIP funding? And at this point, there is no thought of changing the planning targets for the regions. As the financial folks in main office have said, that continuing resolution extended FAST Act through the end of September, but there's nothing that stops Congress and the administration from going ahead and passing a bill that starts sooner. It may supersede that continuing resolution. So there is potential that the funding does come up. So until they need to make a change, they're not making a change. But on the appropriations side of things, there is some movement. Not so much on the House side, because in mid-July, the House Appropriations Committee passed its FFY 2021 appropriations bill for Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development, or THUD, and they've not moved away from that. So that is still out there for consideration. That bill provides $107.2 billion for the Department of Transportation, and that would be an increase of $21.1 billion over the FFY 2020 amounts. Some highlights from this appropriations include $1 billion for, they refer to National Infrastructure Investments. These were previously known as the Tiger Program or the BUILD Program, but Tiger was a Democratic program, BUILD was a Republican program, and the Democratic-led House, I think, just went for the generic National Infrastructure Investments. The bill also incurs for transportation planning grants to assist areas of persistent poverty. This is a new competitive program. At our AMPO conference 2 weeks ago, there was some discussion. They're using data going back to identify persistent poverty, and in some cases, they're looking back to I believe it's the 1990 census. So if census after census after census is showing certain amounts of poverty, well, that's persistent poverty. So it's not just, well, what's the last 5 years, but they're looking long term. And it sounds kind of crazy to say this, but that sort of bodes well for our region in that we could be competitive. Obviously, there's some severe poverty within the city of Rochester, persistent poverty, but even outside of the city in other areas, in our agricultural areas and the rural counties, there is some persistent pockets of poverty out there. So maybe there's an opportunity for our region. I'm not sure how much we can do on the planning side. I think the implementation side is where people need more help, but we'll see what comes of that. The bill also includes $61.9 billion for programs that are funded through the Highway Trust Fund, and this is consistent with the House-passed Invest in America Act. So we're waiting to see what comes of that. This would be an increase of $14.7 billion over the 2020 levels. Also includes $18.9 billion for transit formula grants, again, consistent with the Invest in America Act. And that's an increase of $5.8 billion over 2020 levels. Just this week, on November 10th, Tuesday, the Senate Appropriations Committee released all 12 appropriations bills. So the Senate has made some progress as well. There's one for transportation, housing, and urban development and related agencies. That's one of the 12. Within that, for the Department of Transportation, the bill includes $25.673. Why they want to have 3 digits, I don't know, but billion for the discretionary programs and $61.336 billion in obligation limitations. So, nearly half of it would be discretionary programs. So that's kind of interesting. Again, $1 billion on the infrastructure, but because it's a Republican-controlled Senate, they are talking specifically the BUILD program. And there's also $48.7 billion for federal highway programs, and this would include $1.4 billion specifically for bridges. And then $13 billion for FTA programs. Their summaries really don't provide much a detail beyond that. But it will be interesting to see how these bills progress during the lame duck session. We already know that there'll be changes in the House based on election results and the Senate. That'll happen after January 1st, but there's also potential for control of the Senate to change parties as a result of 2 runoff elections that will be held in Georgia on January 5th. Depending on how that goes, the Democrats could take control, the Republicans can retain control, or it could be a tie. So that will be very interesting to see what happens. And if as projected, Biden is the winner of the election, then his supporters may push for another continuing resolution that would take the federal operations from December 11th to sometime past the inauguration, so that his administration has a chance to influence the remainder of the fiscal year spending. So still some wait and see out there. Like I said, federal programs are funded through December 11th. So I think that takes us past the Electoral College meeting, and should be interesting to see what happens. And then, as I previously mentioned, the continuing resolution did extend the FAST Act through September 30th. So whichever administration is in charge come 2021, they will have significant influence over the next surface transportation bill, which I hope Congress can come to terms with during 2021 and not have to extend it. T21 was extended like 34 times. That's extremely difficult for any of our partners to plan, and how are they going to implement a transportation construction program with ridiculous give us 62 days of funding, 87 days of funding. I mean, some of them are just absolutely ridiculous. So with that, open any questions you might have on the legislative update.
Questions of Jim? Okay. Move on to the next CIP staff modifications, which are listed in the packet.
And I'll defer to Alex if there's any questions on those.
These modifications fall under the 3 categories.
Okay. Seeing no questions, and we'll move on to the next item, the long-range transportation plan.
Actually, can I interrupt you for a second? Can you go back and just read those for the benefit of the people that are listening to the audio only?
Probably not a bad idea. Thanks, Lori.
Sure, Lori.
Just read them off quickly. Thank you.
Sure. The first category was to add new non-federal funding to the Mud Mills Road over Ganargua Creek project in Wayne County, the Lake Road West Fork Bridge over Sandy Creek in Monroe County, Highway Preventative Maintenance number 8 project in Monroe County, the NISDOT Bridge Preventative Maintenance 10 locations project region-wide, NISDOT's large culvert replacement rehabilitation project region-wide, the Route 96 Ontario County line to Garnsey Road PM project in Monroe County. 2 projects had their phases modified with no change in total cost or federal share. The first is the State Street reconstruction project in the city of Rochester, and the second is the operation of the RTOC Center in Monroe County across 4 years. The third set of last project is the County Road 31 Exchange Street preventative maintenance project in Wyoming County. That project had its limits expanded with no additional federal funds.
All right, great. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. Thanks, Lori, for the reminder. Any questions on any of those? All right. Well, now we'll move on to the long-range plan.
Okay.
All right.
So,
All right.
Sorry, Jim.
I was just going to say, Jody Binnix has been leading our effort on this, so I was going to let her discuss this one.
Sure.
Okay.
So per our guidance from our federal partners, GTC is still anticipating a June 2021 adoption date for LRTB 2045. The first round of public engagement on the issues and opportunities facing the region now and in the future ended on September 4th. GTC used the public engagement platform to conduct public engagement and we advertised these opportunities through both traditional and social media platforms. We held 2 virtual open houses in August. These open houses provided opportunities for members of the public to ask staff questions regarding the plan. GTC staff also developed an online survey that was available from mid-July to early September. Approximately 200 people took the survey. It focused on engaging the public's opinion related to the transportation issues and opportunities, as well as impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on travel patterns. And Alex, you can advance the slide, please. Okay. When asked to select factors that will impact the regional transportation system over the next 25 years from a list of options, deteriorating infrastructure was the top pick, followed by changes in technology and the prevalence of e-commerce. When asked if there are other factors that you think will impact the transportation system over the next 25 years, as seen on the word cloud, respondents cited access to jobs, impacts of climate change, along with increased access to transit, pedestrian, and bicycling options as high priorities. Equity also came up quite a bit in this discussion as well. As far as COVID-19, over 80% of respondents cited they were driving less often and consuming less fuel since the start of the pandemic. And about a quarter of those that cited that they were driving less and using less fuel expected this change to be permanent. Next slide, please, Alex. So staff have completed the demographic and socioeconomic components of the plan and have compiled general information regarding the transportation system. Additionally, we revisited and revised the emerging issues and opportunities from the previous long-range plans. So the list of current emerging opportunities and issues in LRTP 2045 will include the following: transportation and public health, impacts of extreme weather and climate change, expansion of alternative fuels, unforeseen system disruptions, which is a nod to COVID-19 and just how that can change everything so quickly. Strategic divestment, and we have a new section that's entitled Emerging Technologies, and under that section we have Mobility as a Service, Connected Autonomous and Automated Vehicles, and e-commerce. So over the next few months, staff will begin finalizing the transportation system needs, and we're going to develop this associated recommendations in the corresponding financial plan. And the second round of public engagement regarding the recommendations will take place following the new year. We anticipate using the publicinput.com platform for that as well. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Okay. Any questions?
Jim Pond with a question. Some of these are currently used to score projects to see if they're going to, be how they score to see which ones get the priority. I'm just curious, when you start to add things like unforeseen system disruptions or strategic divestment, how would that come into a project score in the future if you're trying to evaluate a project?
Jim, I'll jump in on that. So this is Jim Stack. Once our new long-range plan is put into place next summer, we will work with the Transportation Improvement Program, TIP Development Committee, to look to see how this changes what we evaluate. From a long-range plan perspective, the idea of unforeseen disruptions becomes, how do we remain sort of adaptable and flexible, doesn't necessarily tie into what projects we're tipping or what we're picking for funding under the TIP. A strategic divestment, however, could be different, because the thought coming out of that is where strategic divestment is a viable alternative and potentially a cost-saving alternative. Example we give and what we're hoping to study a little further, during the last cycle, NISDOT, through their analysis of bridge condition, had identified a bridge in Ontario County that, the deck was getting to the point where it needed some significant attention. But then after the application was submitted, but before it was evaluated, Region 4 reached out and said, you know what, we want to hold off on that because this is Route 96 over Route 14, which is a grade separated intersection with basically a clover leaf interchange with relatively low volumes. So the thought being, before we just go replace in kind, let's take a look at how would we design that today, and what is necessary given the current travel through there and projected travel. If that's something you would build today with a grade separated bridge over another road in full diamond, full clover leaf, or do we look at something different? And that's the idea of how it would be strategic in divestment, getting rid of a bridge in favor of an at-grade intersection. Ultimately, that could have lower construction costs and lower life cycle costs, but that's where it would come into play in, say, like a TIP project selection, how it would compete. But again, we would work through the TIP development committee to understand how any new issues and opportunities, recommendations play into the evaluation criteria.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. That's a great update, Jody. Appreciate that. All right. On to our action items this morning. First one up is approving the draft public participation plan. I think Lori said she'd be back for that.
Yeah, so I just want to introduce, it has been quite a while. I think our last public participation plan was 2007, and Lori can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And we really were working towards, trying to finalize this 6-8 months ago, but for various reasons, it didn't progress as well as we had originally anticipated, which ended up being somewhat fortuitous because during the whole COVID stuff, we've learned a whole lot, and we really are writing this differently than we would have written a year ago. So with that, I'll let Lori talk about why we're doing and what we're doing and how we're doing.
All right. Good morning. Today we want to present the draft update to the public engagement plan for your approval and to release for public review and comment for the next 45 days. We do this because it is part of federal law that we're required to have a plan like this, but also it's the right thing to do. Advance the slide, Alex. The public engagement plan is an action plan to involve and engage the public in transportation planning. It guides the public, GT staff, member agencies, and sponsors who administer GTC-funded projects and programs through the public participation aspects of these transportation projects. Meaningful and effective participation is essential to the successful implementation of a public plan, project, or program, and it's necessary to ensure the needs of the local community are adequately addressed. All GTC planning work products, as well as major amendments to adopted plans and programs, are incorporated into this plan. The plan is organized into sections for each public involvement opportunity. Each includes a description of what it is, why it's important, the public participation process, publicity efforts, arrangements to accommodate and make the opportunity accessible, contingency plans, how and when each is reviewed, amended, updated, and then for those that want more detailed information, a references section. We strive to provide consistent guidance to manage expectations, but also leave room for flexibility to customize for different situations. So we have the board and planning meetings, each of the core products, other required products, and then, of course, participating in federally funded projects. Next slide, please. So with that, the next step is to make sure that the public is on board with this particular plan that we're drafting. And we actually have to have a 45-day public review period. And assuming that this is recommended and approved today, we'd like to put that out tomorrow through January 4th of next year. And we really want to make sure that the people that are going to be using this plan, including agencies and those, but also the people, have an opportunity to comment on it and share anything that might be missing. So to do that, we will be doing the required legal notice in the newspaper, the media release, social media, a mass email campaign, things like that. So I do encourage you to look at it and then also spread the word with your respective organizations. We did create a a dedicated public input page where people can review and submit comments in different ways. And of course, we can always make arrangements to have somebody review it in person, or we can mail a copy, or whatever works. Next slide. And then the final steps will be to bring back any revisions to the next planning committee in January, and then make any changes if necessary, and then hoping that the planning committee makes a final recommendation in February of 2021, and then take it to the board for consideration and adoption in February. What questions does anyone have?
Okay. Any questions of Lori?
So this is Jim Stack, not so much a question, but just an observation for everybody. You may be curious as to why we're having a 45-day review when a lot of things are 30-day reviews. This is the one product that federal regulations require a 40-day review. All the other stuff we do, they kind of leave it up to us and what we do in our public participation plan or our public engagement plan. So this one's a little bit different.
All right. First of all, just my reading through it is pretty comprehensive and very thorough, and I think a good plan that, and I think GTC's always done a good job of making all their products accessible and including public involvement. So this plan just embellishes that even more, and I think it's a really good, solid plan. So good work to Jim, Lori, and the GTC staff. So having said that, is there anyone who would like to move this for adoption by the committee?
Scott, not for adoption, but for approval to go out for public review.
Right. I'm sorry.
This is Chris Ray.
This is Angela. I'll move it.
I'll second.
I think I heard from Angela and Chris for to move it and to second it. Thank you. And is there anyone who objects to moving this forward? Okay, thank you. So we'll move this out for public review period. Thank you, everyone. Next up is recommendation to the board concerning amending the bylaws of the Genesee Transportation Council. So, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So this is something that's been stewing around for a little bit internally, and I've had conversations a few different times with nominating committees in the past. But when it comes to GTC officers, one of the things that really kind of restricts us is the way the current bylaws are written. GTC officer has to be a GTC member, and basically what we have is, by nature of their position, the chairman of each county legislature or board of supervisors is a member, the county executive, the mayor, the president of the Rochester City Council. We have some at-large members. We have the Monroe County Planning Board. We have the city's planning commission. So we have several agencies that have, again, by definition, have representation on our board. But when it comes time for finding viable candidates, we have many people. There's so much on their plate that they have to prioritize, and there's instances where a board alternate is more active in GTC operations for a variety of reasons. But those alternates have not been eligible to be officers. And the example I held out for many years was Jerry Davis, who was the alternate for Wyoming County, but had been the active member for, over 10 years. Ultimately, back in January, he became the chairman of the Wyoming County Board of Supervisors. So in March, when we had our elections, he was eligible to be an officer finally, and he was elected our chairman. But back in July, he stepped down from his duties as chairman of Wyoming County, for some medical reasons. He got thrust into a heck of a time to try to maintain his position as a town supervisor and take over as basically the lead administrator for the county, and everything blew up with COVID. But when he stepped away, that meant he could no longer be an officer for GTC. So our vice chairman, David Lefebvre from Livingston County, is now our acting chairman, and we technically don't have a vice chairman. The GTC Executive Committee can fill that position, but the conversations that we had, again, like I said, with nominating committee folks in the past, conversation I had with Jerry Davis while he was still chairman. I think I've discussed it with David Lefebvre, but the idea of opening up the pool of potential candidates came up and has been supportive. So my thought process is that we can create qualified alternates, and basically I use the term small q qualified, not so much about their abilities, but about the role they have in the entity that they're represented. And the thought behind this is that if there's an elected official serving on the same board, a board of supervisors, a legislature, city council, they are accountable to the voters, just like the member is. And as opposed to, say, like an at-large member who, if you're appointed by the county executive, you kind of serve at the pleasure of the county executive. It's a little bit different when it comes to being an officer of GTC, and the nominating committee for, as long as I can remember, has thought about, our board chairman should be an elected official. So I've written this up such that, somebody serving in the same body as the member becomes a qualified alternate with regards to officers. I'm open to any thoughts or conversations on this, but what I'm asking for is that the planning committee recommend this change in the language in the bylaws as it pertains to GTC officers only. And it was included out in the package, but I will read it for those who are on the call and cannot view the screen. And I'll indicate where I want to do deletions or additions. So as written, the GTC bylaws, Article 3, officers, Section 1, designation and election of officers. The officers of the council shall be a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary. The chairman and vice chairman shall be elected from among the voting members. And here is where I recommend a deletion, where it currently says, but not alternates, and change that to voting members and qualified alternates, which would be the insertion, to serve 2-year terms. Another insertion defines that qualified alternate as a qualified alternate is someone who is an elected official serving on the same body as that of the ex officio voting member, i.e. county legislature, county board of supervisors, Rochester city council, etc. While staff to such body may serve as an alternate to the council, they are not eligible to serve as an officer. Another insertion. So for example, we have BJ Scanlon on the line. He is staff to city council. he would not be somebody that would be a qualified alternate in this regard. And we have different situations where a staff person represents the member at the board level. So, any questions, comments, concerns about what I've presented here?
Yes. Any questions of Jim?
Well, Jim Pond here, and this is just a little technical note here, Jim and others, but Scott, in the meeting minutes, you had identified yourself as the chairperson. And I see here we're calling chairman, vice chairman, et cetera. If you're going to change this clause, I wondered if it would make sense to make it gender neutral.
Yeah, that is a good catch. No, Scott is the chairperson of the planning committee, which isn't spelled out as an officer in our bylaws. So, but that is a good observation. We have that opportunity to go gender neutral if we're making a change, anyways. And I've got no problem making that change if that's what the committee wants.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. That'd be fine. So, any other comments or questions? All right,
Scott,
thank you,
this
Jim.
Scott, this is
Yes.
Angela.
Hi, Angela.
Just hi. Just two questions, I guess. Well, one's a question and one's a statement. The question, so in the proposed change where it says, i.e. County Legislature, County Board of Supervisors, Rochester City Council, is there anybody else besides those three? And the reason that I ask is, I mean, this is me in particular. I'm not a huge fan of the word et cetera or i.e. in bylaws if it could or should be spelled out. So I didn't know if it would be worthwhile, if there are others besides those three, to specifically list those so that there's no question as to what the et cetera might be. That's the first. And then the second is I agree with what you're proposing to do, Jim, here, because I've long been a strong supporter of the need for officers to be the elected officials. I think that is very, very important. While I've served as the alternate for a very, very, very long time, I still maintain that our elected officials should be in those officer positions. I do think that that's important. That was it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Angela. Is there an expansion of that IE column that could be more encompassing?
I'm pulling up the board list now. I don't think so, but I didn't. I kind of went back and forth on that myself, sort of like, well, I didn't want to exclude anybody and kind of threw the et cetera in there. But yeah, to Angela's point, when we're dealing with bylaws, we probably should have a greater level of specificity. So just quickly looking, of course, it's taking a while to open. All right, so we've got county legislature. So county executive, superintendent board at large, city, state agencies. I guess the only thing that would come into play would be the Regional Planning Council and the Regional Transportation Authority has the potential, although Regional Transportation Authority doesn't generally have elected officials on there. The Regional Planning Council does. And I know in the past, for example, Marvin Decker was our chairman for quite some time, and he had served in both capacity as chairman of the Wayne County Board of Supervisors and as chairman of the Regional Planning Council. So I guess that would be the only other et cetera for the list. And we could tweak that to Andrew's point, we could probably drop the IE and just list out County legislatures, County Board of Supervisors, Rochester City Council, and the Regional Planning Council would be the only bodies that an elected official could come from.
Okay.
The other reason that I asked the question, Jim, is because, I mean, oftentimes Scott and I serve on the nominating committee, and one of the first questions we would ask is who's eligible. And so that Excedra removes that question for us on who's eligible.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a great distinction, and as I said, you know, being something like a bylaws, you don't want to leave vague terms.
Okay. All right. Very good. Good points, Angela. Thank you. So, Jim, you'll expand on that. If everyone's okay with that modification, we can move forward with the recommendation here to the board.
Okay, just to recap the modifications, we would change the chairman, vice chairman to chairperson, vice chairperson to go general neutral, and the dropping the et cetera from the list of eligible bodies, dropping the IE from that, but then adding the Regional Planning Council as one other body that could have an alternate. And I think that's it for the changes.
Okay, so if there's no objection to that, I don't believe there is.
Yeah, hey, Jim, you will have to check your other bylaws for that same reference, though. I could have spelled out a large number of changes throughout if that chairman term is used throughout. So just keep that in mind. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, this was, you know, that is something I think we can work with the board on making minor changes. This I thought was a significant change that I needed the planning committee to weigh in. The other stuff, I believe the executive committee could change to a gender neutral, but you know, this particular opening it up to other people to qualify as officers, I did not want to take straight to the board. I wanted to have input from the planning committee in particular, since, you know, as Angela mentioned, her and Scott and Norm Jones have been nominating committee folks for many cycles. Like, gosh, I think at least 10 years now. So,
Oh, has it been that long?
well, I was trying to think of like at least 5 cycles, right? At least 4 cycles, which would be 8 years.
You're aging me.
Time flies, Angela, when we're having fun.
It does. It does.
All right. Assuming there's no objection to those changes, can I have a motion to recommend this to the board?
Jim Pond giving you a motion to approve.
Thank you, Jim. And can someone offer a second?
I'll second it. Angela.
Angela, thank you. All right. So, if there's no objections, we'll move this forward. Is there anyone who objects to moving this to the board? Okay, we'll move that up to the board for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next item is 5B, recommendation to the GTC board concerning accepting reports of evidence of completions of UPWP tasks. We have 2 today, and if it's acceptable to everyone, we'll vote on these as a group, but we'll entertain the overviews separately. First one up is a Regional Land Use Monitoring Report from the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council.
All right, I'll defer to Jay, but I believe Emily is on board.
Yeah, Emily did all the work.
To talk about that. All right.
Emily did all the work. Let her do the present.
Okay.
Good morning. I wanted to thank the Genesee Transportation Council for funding the Regional Land Use Monitoring Report and allowing it to be an annual project. I appreciate your patience as I was out on maternity leave for a couple months, but we moved ahead. So collecting data in 2020 for the 2019 permit data was a challenge. We had to rely on additionally the New York State DOS Uniform Code annual report that covers generally the topics that we ask in our survey. Because of the COVID and the pandemic, that has really hampered everyone's ability to really do what they normally do. And so we had to plan accordingly and make adaptations. I think it still worked out very well. We were able to get the data that we needed. So in terms of the results of the Genesee Finger Lakes survey, with the addition of the New York State DOS Uniform Code information, the highest number of residential permits in the Genesee Finger Lakes region for 2019 was the town of Henrietta with 113 permits, followed by the town of Webster with 97, the town of Farmington in Ontario County with 82, Greasehead 81, and Penfield had 62. In terms of the residential permitted units, which is a distinction for the multifamily units, the city of Rochester permitted 347 units, with the town of Chili coming second at 149 and Webster with 121. The next highest permitted units outside of Monroe County was again in the town of Farmington with 82. They had all single family units, and the town of Ontario with 39. I think there was a 5 or more family unit or complex that was permitted. Over the years from 2010 to 2019, the majority of residential permits, unit permit in the MPA have been in Monroe County. The most being in the city of Rochester, with the town of Webster, Henrietta, and Penfield following behind that. Outside of Monroe County in the MPA, the towns of Farmington, Canandaigua, and Victor, all the towns. In Ontario, and towns of Ontario and Macedon in Wayne County issued permits for the largest number of residential units. So it's the same area. The data on permitted building activities and demolition tables are also in this report. And this year we have added mixed use to start tracking in the future what kind of permits are there. We all version and added an upgrades and remodeling permits tabulation, because that shows growth in a different capacity. Though the caveat with that is that each town, village, and municipality requires different permits for upgrades than others, but it's still an indicator. So that is the report. It will be published soon, very shortly, but we were able to persevere through the COVID pandemic, and it'll be very interesting to see what next year's numbers are, given that this is such a extraordinary year. So thank you again, and if there's any questions, I would be very happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions, Emily? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Emily. Nice report. Next up, we have the accepting of the Cayuga Seneca Canalway Trail Phase 2 study in Seneca County. And is Mitch going to walk us through that, or?
I believe I was going to. This is Harriet Haynes from Seneca County Planning. First of all, we'd like to thank GTC for the funding to move forward with this project. The phase 2 would be the completion of the trail between the village of Waterloo and the former village of Seneca Falls, which are the two most populated areas along our anticipated canal length trail. As everything this year, the pandemic kicked in. Fortunately, we had completed most of our public participation upfront process to get the public's view on what should happen as far as alignment of this trail, particularly through the village of Waterloo. We held a public event where we actually did a walking tour during the month of December. It was good weather. We hit a hitch and trying to figure out how to go remote, but with the help of our consultants, Ty Lin and Highland Design, who had been great in working us through the working with the public and developing that process. We also moved forward to being able to have the plan finalized and developed. We look forward to a time when this type of project will once again be funded.
All right.
Questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Nice presentation. All right, at this time, I'd like to have a motion to recommend these two to the board for approval.
So moved.
Was it Eric? Eric?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And a second?
Second, Mitch from Seneca.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Okay, is there any objections to moving this recommendation to the board? All right, thank you. To 5D, modifying and amending the 2020-2024 Transportation Improvement Program. We have 6 actions today. 2 of them are planning committee. I would recommend those be adopted in a single vote, and then the remaining 4 council resolutions. So,
Hey, Scott, before we move on that, this is Jim Stack. We had some email exchanges going back and forth. I think the staff was a little premature getting out in front of the TIP Development Committee a little bit on a City of Rochester project. I believe it's number 1. Alex, please correct me if I'm wrong. The Streetscape Phase 2. And Eric, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the general agreement was that we would table this and allow the TDC some further discussion.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to bring this back to the next TDC meeting.
And I apologize for us getting out over our skis on that one. But so that would adjust. Number 1 would be tabled and pulled from the discussion.
okay. We'll do that next time. So that would leave the one after then, increasing the total cost, 60 FLAP project, National Wildlife Refuge Project. Is there a quick overview of this, or this is ready to move on?
Is there somebody from NISAT that can give a quick recap?
Yep. This is a federal lands project on Route 63. There's been some increases as the design is progressing. Federal Lands is designing this for us and delivering the project for us. It's all their funds, no impact to our regional core funds. So just moving through the project process.
And just so everybody knows, the making this change on the TIP allows them to continue to progress the project and no interruption in the in their funding flow. And as Chris mentioned, it doesn't affect any other project in our region.
Great. Thanks, Chris. This is a planning committee resolution. We can approve this at this time. So can I have a motion to approve?
Just to clarify, we're only talking about 20-21. We tabled 20-20.
Correct, just the one, right. Anyone? Just need one.
This is Angela. I'll move it.
Thank you.
Second.
And the second?
I heard BJ Scanlon. Thank you, BJ.
Okay, excellent. Okay, assuming there's no objection, we'll move this on. Any objections to approving this? All right, thank you. That passes. Okay, the next 4 are council resolutions. These have been vetted at the TDC level, but if there's anyone that wants an overview of any of these projects, we can entertain that. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve these projects. And Jim, maybe you just want to read through them quickly and,
Yeah, so the first one, so we have segregated these into what is getting funded through our regional planning targets. So that would be number 3, the Ninth Bridge deck replacement. I'm sorry, deck preventive maintenance. And basically, as you know, and Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong. As they progress through the design, one of the bridges, well, several of the bridges were impacted by new rules regarding railing systems, and one of the bridges would have needed some extensive work to accommodate the new railing system, and started to tip the balance of cost so that NISDOT design teams would want to look at a different treatment there, so they would drop that location. But 2 of the other locations, while the cost will come up, it's still considered cost effective. So in essence, one bridge coming off, adding the bridge rail replacement component to 2 of the bridges, and adjusting the project cost slightly.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, 2 locations, our main office wouldn't approve the preliminary bridge plans, the upgraded rail, the mass standards changing. So we looked at all the locations, and there was also another location where they were requiring us to upgrade the rail, which is Sutton Road over 390. But like Jim said, the overhang, the bridge overhang, needed to be reconstructed to accommodate the new rail system. And once we estimated that cost, the cost of the new rail and the repaired fascia overhang approached the cost of a whole new deck. So it didn't make financial sense to invest that kind of money. So we took the money from that location, Sutton Road, and we're able to apply that to the 2 locations on 390. They are 390 north and southbound over Round Pond Creek up in Greece, to be able to put the mass standard bridge rail on those 2 locations.
okay. Chris?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I think, Scott, did you say thank you, Chris? We only heard Chris. I think your microphone had cut out, so it was confusing. So, and then moving down the tip amendments under the transit program, these are all discretionary, so they were segregated from the planning target funds. These 3 all have funding dedicated to the specific project, so they would not affect, this change does not affect any other project. But in the case of number 4 and number 5, the shared mobility project and the community mobility zone operations, both of those project schedules were impacted by COVID-19 and the need to delay the launch of the Reimagine RTS. The funding, basically, we're just realigning from one fiscal year. So last federal fiscal year of 2020 to the current federal fiscal year, with the strong desire and hope that things will settle out with COVID during 2021 and these both can move forward. The third one, the volunteer transportation Western New York project, was added to the TIP in August. This is a grant that the Volunteer Transportation Center out of Watertown got for doing coordinating volunteer drivers with people in need in Erie and Genesee County. We had put it on initially with the estimated proportion for Genesee County, and the figures have been revised slightly. So basically coming down about $10,000 for the Genesee County cost. But FTA requires that the funds be reflected in the region in which they're going to be used. So some operations in Erie County, which would go to the Greater Buffalo Niagara Transportation Council, some in Genesee County, which come through GTC, and then some administrative costs in Watertown, which go through the Watertown MPO. So this is one of the more complex projects, I think, in the state, and certainly probably the lowest value project for the level of complexity.
Probably. Okay. Thank you, Jim. All right. So can I have a motion to approve these 4 projects to recommend to the board?
Jim Pond, motion to approve.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone to second?
This is Angela. I'll second.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, unless there's any objection, we'll move these to the board for consideration. Is there any objections? Okay, thank you. It'll be considered at the next board meeting. All right, brings us up to new business.
Okay, so on the agenda, we had put planning committee calendar. Unfortunately, with all the upheaval, we were not able to finalize every location before the meeting package went out. So the meeting package did not include locations this year, but there are typical locations. We do have the asterisk, caveat, whatever you want to say. While we hope to someday get back to physically present meetings, all of these are subject to change to remote meetings depending on COVID. And, I'd be shocked if the January 7th meeting came off as in person, but it would be nice if we could see each other again. Generally speaking, these are the second Thursday of the month. One exception is in November because the second Thursday is Veterans Day. So we postponed that meeting a week.
Okay. That won't have any impact on the December or the last board meeting for any approvals by the end of the year? No, there's no fiscal year constraint there, right? No.
Right. There would be no impacts, and we still have time to keep our December board meeting on the second Thursday, so that is not an issue for December. The meeting that gets pushed around at the board level is the traditional September meeting that's been accelerated to August. In advance of the end of the federal fiscal year, and that is aligning fine. We've identified the dates for the quarterly board meetings and coordinated with Jay Gazelle at the Regional Planning Council. As many will recall, we've accelerated our March and September meetings up to February and August respectively to get our UPWP adopted before March 1st and get our TIP amendments before the fiscal system goes into freeze in September, the federal fiscal system, financial system, and then keeping the June and December meetings where they are for GFL needs with regard to their annual budget and their annual presentation of their annual audit. So there were some key dates for them. We will be getting meeting invitations out to everybody for the calendar, and we'll get a PDF of the full list of meetings for folks to put on, and I expect that will happen by the middle of next week.
All right. Good. Thank you, Jim. Brings us up to the next agenda item, the public forum. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the committee today as a result of our business?
We don't at the moment, but we did have one person that was possibly interested unless his question was answered during the meeting. So I'm just going to give a minute if
the
person calling would like to is on the phone and you hit start. We can see you in the queue and we can patch you through and you can address the queue.
Okay.
Give a minute there. Jody, do you see anybody on your end? Is anybody in the speaker queue at the moment?
I'm not seeing anybody, Lori. I know it does take a minute to catch up.
Okay.
Okay, I would say if we get anything, we can follow up after.
Okay. Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Yep. Terry said he's in the queue to speak. I don't see him raising his hand. Do you see him, Lori?
No, I don't. You can hear us, just dial *3 for us. Oh, here we go. We do have somebody in the menu. So Jody, when it comes through, you can catch them through.
Okay. Just waiting for that to cycle through.
All right.
It does.
Yeah, there's a lag. So we're live streaming, but the public input page is a little bit behind the actual meeting. So I'm going to put Terry through right now.
But the phone call
Okay.
is in real time. So
yes.
Terry from Monroe County, welcome to our show. Terry, do we have you yet?
Are we live? We live yet?
Should be.
Should be.
And we all miss Terry's voice so much.
Yeah, it should work. I clicked on it.
Terry there? Oh, Terry, unmute if maybe you need to unmute. We still working on that?
Not sure.
Hello.
Oh.
Where did you send the actual schedule for the council for the interviews?
It should be in the meeting invite. So if you go to the meeting invite, it should say everyone that's supposed to be there.
Okay, we gotta look outside. The interviews at 1 hour block.
BJ, can you mute your line?
It says candidate star, but it doesn't have.
Okay.
All right, so we apparently. Oh wait, are we getting them? Apologize to everybody for the technical difficulties. This is worked in practice. Yeah, perhaps we can.
Well, let me end it, and if Terry wants to try again, or whoever's calling in wants to try again, they can. I'm going to end it right now and see if we can get it back.
Okay, and then if somebody's on the publicinput.com platform that could chat with Terry, just ask via chat to try again. And
Okay, it's in the menu.
Caller is not muted, is muted.
Hey, Lori.
Yes.
I think the publicinput.com line got muted in WebEx. Maybe that's the problem.
Oh, okay, hold on. Mute.
Okay, yeah, he was muted. He was talking, but he was muted. So I'm going to put him back through, and we're going to unmute the WebEx public input line in WebEx and see if that works. So here, I'm going to try again.
Okay.
Are you able to unmute the line, Lori?
It
I
just
don't
says
have.
it just says request sent. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, that's what it's
I
telling
apologize.
me too. Jim, can you try to unmute the line, the publicinput.com line? I think too many of us are signed in as.
Yeah, I'm not signed into publicinput.com, so I'm
No, on the
not sure.
WebEx.
On the WebEx.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure out which one is the publicinput.com line.
Under the L.
It's labeled publicinput.com line.
Okay, yeah, I just have to try to find. I lost my participants.
When I do it, it says request sent. So
yeah, I'm not sure.
I apologize.
I've never seen that.
Bear with me while I lost my banner of participants, so now I'm looking 2 at a time. Oh, come on, what is this doing? Oh, here we go. Yeah, again, I'm getting the same thing. Request sent. Oh, hey, I think we finally got it open.
Oh, we got it. I think you got it. Oh, Terry, can you hear us?
Oh, he's trying again. Sorry, guys. He did. There's a transcript of his message in publicinput.com in the back end that I can see. He was muted, and that's why I couldn't hear. Okay, I'm gonna connect him again. Let's try this for the third time. Third time's the charm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Terry. Apologize for the confusion. We had some technical issues.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Hello.
We can hear you, Terry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Oh, I can. Oh my God, this is difficult.
Hey.
Terry, apologize for the challenges. Yeah, for some reason the line got muted on our end, and it took us some time to figure out how to overcome that challenge. And apologize for that. Thankfully, we got a familiar voice to mess around with, and not somebody that doesn't know us. No, but I mean somebody that doesn't know us and thinks this is how we normally operate. This has never happened to us before, so.
Hey, go ahead.
No problem. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity. Can you
Sure
hear me?
thing. Yes, we can.
Okay. In the packet you sent out, as everybody knows, or some people know, I used to be very involved in this group. But the packet was sent out. I see the TIP financial summary. It's something I always keep track of. I know it was something that we developed while I was on the planning committee. And it looks to me that and I believe you might be working on some of this stuff, but there's money, a bunch of money available of flex money and other OSB money. Not only in 2021, there's some, but even 22, especially 22, 23, 24. And as I also look now on the consultant end of things, as I look at the program, there's not any, I know you blocked a bunch of money and that's what the later years are, but there's not any projects that are going to be coming out on the street in 2022 at this point, or 23 for design. So therefore, there's not going to be any construction coming in a couple of years after that. So my question is, is the TDC committee, which is part of the planning committee, are they looking to kind of program some money in 22? I know there's fiscally constrained maybe because the NHP is a negative, but I don't know if that's the big issue, that large urban for 22, but at least if that's the case, then I guess 22 is off the books and we're not till 23, but it's just more of a point that there's really not a lot of work that's going to be out there for either consultants or contractors or for the municipalities to get work done. So wondering if anything's being looked at.
Terry, this is Jim Stack. The short answer is yes. We've already started those conversations at the TDC level and are working with county highway superintendents on advancing some of the projects that were previously submitted for the current TIP but not selected for funding as our starting point for discussion. We're pulling together some project information now in coordination with NISDOT Region 4 and our next TIP Development Committee meeting. We'll have some more discussions. I know Chris Reeve has been heavily involved. Chris, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, we recognize your concern, Terry. And like Jim said, we are working towards programming some of those balances, some of the balances and the blocks that we created just for this purpose. It is hard to predict PM needs when you're developing a TIP out in those outer years.
So will that include, is there going to be an opportunity in 22 for some design projects? Because like I say, there isn't many, or is that off the table because of the negative for NHP and large urban from a fiscally constrained year?
Well, we will be looking at that, but we also have to look at the rows and columns and make sure we're fiscally constrained across all program areas.
So yeah, Terry, to your point, the current year 2021 does have some capacity. When we look at the FHWA total bottom line, there's a little over $1 million. So we're looking at the idea of we've used the term in the past, pipeline projects, trying to get some designs going, potentially in the get some funds obligated this current federal fiscal year. 2022 is very tight across all programs. There's only 288,000 available, so there's not a lot can be done, and we want to make sure we don't completely close out any of our flexibility, so that as projects get through design and get closer to plan specification and estimates and going out to bid, that we have some flexibility to capture some of the changes. So we're trying to strike a balance between maximizing the resources we make available with not losing our flexibility to address projects that are progressing through design right now.
Okay, well, I guess it's good that people are looking at it. Maybe you can get something in for this year or whatever. And I know we used to have to fiscally constrain by fund source by year. So I guess now you just have to do by year. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, we've gotten that flexibility opened up. So across all fund sources in a single year and across any individual fund source for the 5-year period. So yes, we talk about the columns and rows where we used to, when you were involved in it, where we couldn't overspend in any single source in any single year. We've gained some flexibility, which has helped.
Yeah, it's I guess somewhat concerning that one of the most flexible fund sources is now got money in 2022, and it looks like it's going to have to cover others, but it is what it is, I guess. So as long as people are looking at it, and I mean, it's good for the municipalities as well as all the consultants and the contractors, obviously. So, okay, thank you.
Good question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Appreciate it.
And thank you for being patient as we got through all the technical challenges.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other public comments? I'm guessing not.
Not seeing any at this time, Scott.
Okay. All right. And with that, our next meeting is, as Jim pointed out in the calendar earlier, projected for January 7th. We've got the Ebenezer Watts facility lined up for now if it's in person, but if it's not, we'll probably use the same format. And if there's no other comments, we would entertain a adjournment of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone, and everyone continue to stay healthy and safe.
Be well and be safe, everyone.
Thanksgiving, stay safe.
That's right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I know.